Well, those are the headlines. I'm joined now by Al Dunne and by Joe O'Shea. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us this morning. Now, well, we might start with the rehab story. I mean, you know, they've been waiting a month for this information. What do you make of it? Joe, your reaction?
Well, it's finally come out after much pulling and dragging and speculation. And the figures involved do seem to be, they seem to confirm what a lot of the rumours were, and they also seem to be fairly shocking for a lot of people, and maybe a big problem for rehab and for the charity sector in general, which has been struggling, as we all know, with the economy the way it has been going.
Yeah, well, certainly listen to Anne Hannafy from the charity sector. We do have a clip here of the Taoiseach, Eamon Gilmore. He's been speaking about this controversy over Angela Kern's salary on his way into Cabinet a short time ago. He said there should be transparency in relation to salaries in the voluntary sector.
I would also be concerned about the impact that it's having on charities generally, and that's one of the reasons why we're putting in place the charities regulator, and we hope that the staffing and the board of that will be in place by Easter.
By Easter, the charities regulator, I mean, that certainly is long overdue, Al, isn't it? I mean, the details that emerged during this whole scandal, I mean, going back to the CRC, about the lack of accountability for charities were really quite staggering.
I think the part of the issue here is that it's taken so long for this to come out. The 6th of January is when we first heard about this. It has done huge damage, I think, to the charity sector in general. People have just stopped giving money. I think get it out there as quickly as possible would be, you know, it's a crisis. Get it out and deal with it. Why leave it for over a month? And
they've left more to come about their other senior executives. They're saying that will be coming in, what, 2015, I think
it'll be
it was?
in 2016 in the report for 2015.
But, you know, it was Mary Harney, when she was the Health Minister in July 2010, who said that she expressed concern about disturbing salaries in state-funded disability organisations. That was in the summer of 2010. And now 2016, we're going to find out about the full extent of it. And rehab are unusual in that they are a commercial entity, and also they get 80 million euros a year from the state as funding. So in some ways they're saying that, you know, we're not really a charity, but we are a charity, but, you know, we also have these big commercial interests and employ a lot of people around the country. It's very, very damaging for the charity sector, and, you know, as I was saying,
how big are rehab? I mean, what are the details? How many do they employ? What kind of staff?
3,000, something like that. 3,000 staff around the country.
And she's on 240,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and yet the chief executives of some of the biggest hospitals in the country, they're giving out about them getting anything over, what, around 130?
Yeah, 130.
So it does kind of, and then the Taoiseach obviously is the big
well,
comparison.
she is getting 55,000 euros more than the Taoiseach per annum, who is already getting something like 40,000 more than Barack Obama is actually paid for running the United States. So when you look at it in those kind of terms, it does seem unusual.
You'd have a certain sympathy for her in that she has been very much the face of this controversy. I mean, it's hard to believe that she's the only person on very significant salary in that kind of sector.
But she did kind of bring it on herself when she went on Morning Ireland, asking for transparency, and then wasn't transparent herself.
Yeah, except for with rehab.
Well, exactly.
Listen, let's move on from that one there. What about Paddy's Day? We just heard there Oisin Quinn came out to give out about it not being Irish enough, the celebrations, or not being cultural enough, is it, the celebrations in town? But the usual, jet-setting ministers, they're off.
Well, that's you know, if it's not going to be Irish enough, we're certainly not going to have a lot of politicians around for Patrick's Day this year. Not Irish politicians.
We never do, though. You know, this is the story we cover every time.
Perennial. And you know what you have is there's something like 30 TDs and ministers are going everywhere from to Europe, Asia, America, China, New Zealand, Australia, San Francisco, Korea, Japan, and they will say that we are promoting Ireland abroad. And, you know, it's actually a very good point. I mean, people will say, why are ministers going to the United Arab Emirates? Well, if you look at the trade that we do with the United Arab Emirates, especially agribusiness, that kind of area, it is good to have people out there banging the drum for Ireland. They will get slaughtered, though, in the press for doing so, because it is seen as a junket. They do go with lots of advisors. Phil Hogan got into trouble in 2012 for going to Doha to a climate change conference with 9 aides, you know, and that was around Patrick's Day.
9 aides. Is that the famous picture in the Mail time?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Right,
and they actually, there's a good graphic in the Mirror today, and what they've done is they've calculated the total distance travelled by TDs and ministers and senators, and it's the same distance that it would take to get to the moon, 310,000 kilometres.
Yeah, but as you say, I mean, like the pyramids are going green.
It's a great opportunity to promote Ireland.
Opportunity.
And I know they get an awful lot of flack for it, but it is a great opportunity to promote Ireland. There's a lovely line, I think it was Eamon Delaney in the Indo this morning, said Dick Spring, after he managed to hold on to a seat I think it was the 87 election, by 4 votes. He never went away for St Patrick's Day again. Anytime when you're in Worstic Spring, he's actually going to be in Tralee for the parade this year.
Well, that's very. It does not say a lot that by going away you're kind of serving the country overseas. By staying local, you're serving your own seat. Jill, that very sad photograph. It's all over Twitter last night. It's in a lot of the papers today. A 4-year-old lost in the desert in Syria.
Yeah, I think, a picture paints 1,000 words. I think this is going to be one of the pictures, when we look back, this is going to be one of the pictures of the year. Because what it is a young boy, his name's Marwan, and there were UN staff were driving through the desert on the Syrian border, and they came across this young boy standing in the middle of the desert, just carrying with a plastic bag with his possessions. And they obviously went over to see who he was, what had happened. Apparently he had become separated from his family, who were trying to get out of Syria across the desert during the night. Now, he has been reunited with his family, but it is very shocking.
The little plastic bag is so poignant, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's 1 million children, Syrian children, have been forced to flee their country with their families. And I think this one picture will concentrate minds, I think, on this.
Well, you'd hope so, but God, we've seen an awful lot of atrocities coming out of that region, and it doesn't seem to have done much so far, does it, for focusing in on getting a solution there?
No, certainly not, no.
Al, you've been looking at why Billy Connolly has said he's not going to vote in the next Scottish election. Why is that? What's his issue?
Well, I suppose it's mainly because he lives in LA now, but he hasn't said that with his wife Pamela Stevenson. He's saying he's going to be in New Zealand when the vote is going on. And unlike, I suppose, expats like Sean Connery who are saying, oh, yes, we should.
Is this the vote about devolution?
Yes.
All right.
He said he doesn't want to try and influence it one way or the other. I thought it was interesting. He said, I have more in common with a welder from Liverpool than I do with some of the farmers in Scotland. He wasn't saying it in a derogatory way, and I just thought, well, there probably aren't many welders in Liverpool who have mansions in Los Angeles, but, maybe in 1970 he had a lot in common with welders from Liverpool.
I'm sure Scotland would be devastated about Billy not voting. But very finally, the letters that have come into Met Éireann over the last year of people giving out about the weather?
Yeah, this is a freedom of information request to Met Éireann to find out about the kind of...
It's such a brilliant idea, the freedom of information request, doesn't it? You'd never think of it.
As you would expect, a lot of people write in an email to Met Éireann saying, you got the weather wrong and I wish to complain. But you also get some unusual ones. There was one man who got very, very excited or up in arms about the fact that the Met Éireann were misleading the youth of Ireland by announcing the first day of spring on March 21st, when really the first day of spring is on March 21st, and everybody should know this. And
I thought it was February 1st.
Yeah, and also a lady from Cork who was complaining about that her husband had gone out on a farm to get the cows in, had to go to 2 a.m. to get the cows out of the rain because Met Éireann said it wasn't going to rain, it did rain, and they needed to get the cows
entirely their
inside.
fault. What about the guy whose wife was from Nicaragua who was unhappy that there wasn't more coverage of Nicaragua in the weather reports in Ireland?
They felt very left out about the whole thing. Or the person in Clare who was saying the weather there is very different to Waterford City, but you talk about Munster as if it's the same area. Why not talk about the southeast or the northwest?
Oh, it's a great, I'd say it's a rich vein now you could furrow with all the complaints letters coming in. Listen, we're going to leave it there. Thanks a million, Al and Joe, for coming into us this morning. And now it's time for the sports news with Eamon Horan. Eamon.
Thanks, Keelin. It's been a disappointing morning for Irish skier Florence Bell at the Winter Olympics.